So many pests invading Utah neighborhoods. Not mosquitoes or spiders. Utah rattlesnakes. What do you do if you hear that familiar rattle? A special hour with Doug Wright on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
You got to love that opening. You know, and I think we need to top. What do you think there, Dave? You know,
maybe a little over the top.
Did we catch the spirit of it all?
You got the spirit of it for sure.
Yeah, I think you know, Dr. Jones also had another view. We're talking about Indiana Jones, of course. You heard the one cut, you know, where he's in the airplane and he sees Reggie the snake. But he also had this to say about snakes.
Enough is enough. I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
Okay, well, that wasn't Dr. Jones, but that was Samuel L. Jackson, and that's good. You know, snakes on a plane, not a good place for snakes, right, Dave?
No, probably the worst place you could,
Yeah.
Like snakes.
Dave Jensen is here with us. He's the owner-operator of the Wasatch Snake Removal. We're going to talk with him in just a moment, but I want to introduce you to Dr. Martin Caravati, who is a medical toxicologist at the University of Utah. And, Doctor, thank you for taking time, and welcome to the Doug Wright Show. Let's talk a little bit about some of these venomous snakes out there. How did you get into this particular area?
Thank you, Doug. I've been a toxicologist for quite a while up here, and we take care of poison patients, all kinds, which includes, venomous bites, either from snakes or spiders or stings from scorpions. So, I've been interested in snakes for quite a while. We get a lot of patients, not a lot, but a few patients coming to the university and the Children's Hospital who have been bitten.
You know, I'm fortunate. I've lived in Utah my entire life. I've spent a lot of time in the out of doors. I've had some close encounters. The only time I ever ran into a scorpion was up in Duchesne. We were camping there with my boys one night, and that was a little startling. But I've never been stung. I've never been bitten. I've had a few little minor league spider bites, but how prevalent are they, Doctor?
Well, we see quite a bit of spider bites. The black widows are more typically in the fall, and the sort of brown hobo spiders kind of throughout the year. Most of those are really not dangerous, and it's really the black widow is the most venomous spider in Utah. And if you encounter one of those can be quite serious and send you to the hospital. Scorpion stings are fairly rare, much more common around the southern Utah, St. George area. And most of the scorpions we have in Utah don't cause a lot of problems other than just sort of local burning and pain and some redness, kind of like a bad bee sting. Mm-hmm. Unless you get the bark scorpion, which is in Arizona and southern Utah, and then that one can put you in the hospital.
That one's tough. What about the brown recluse? Believe it or not, my father was actually bitten on the leg, and he ignored it for a while. And pretty soon, I mean, it became really serious. He ended up in the University of Utah Medical Center on that, and as a matter of fact, at his funeral not long ago, that was brought up by many people. Wow, do you remember when we had the brown recluse bite? Is that common in Utah?
Brown recluse is very uncommon in Utah. That it's not really a spider that lives naturally around the state. So if you happen to see one, then it's usually been brought in, on a truck or moving truck or somebody's knapsack or something that's come from the place where they normally live, which is more sort of the Midwest, southern part of the country.
Interesting.
But their bites can be pretty bad, and you can have some significant tissue loss, and they can get infected. So you really have to be careful and take care of that bite.
Yeah, that's what my dad had on the back of his leg on his calf. I mean, it was like it was eating the tissue and the flesh and the muscle away. It was they thought it might have been in some coveralls that he had that he worked in, and very, very strange. Let's talk snakes. Okay, how often, Doctor, do you have a snake bite that you deal with?
Well, up at the university and primary children's, we probably see a half a dozen or so every summer. We've actually had 3 kids in the last week and a half who have been bitten by snakes over at primary, so it's a little bit busy over the last week. And statewide, usually I hear about somewhere between 10 and 20 venomous, pit viper, rattlesnake bites.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned bites. Were they all from venomous, or were they snakes that maybe had taken a chunk out of somebody and they weren't venomous?
Well, the ones I hear about are the venomous snakes, which we just have rattlesnakes in Utah. We don't have copperheads or water moccasins or coral snakes, which are the other sort of venomous snakes in the U.S. So we just have rattlesnakes, and almost everybody, I'd say close to 100%, not 100%, are caused by the Great Basin rattlesnake. We have there are about 7 poisonous or venomous pit vipers in the state, sidewinders and Mojaves and midget-faded snakes and such. And I've never seen actually anybody envenomated by one of those. They're much rarer, and they just don't interact with people. But it's the Great Basin that's up and down the Wasatch Front here that people get bitten by.
For those kids that you treated, how did they have their close encounter? What happened?
Well, various. Some are just playing out in a field, or they're out on a hiking trip with their parents, and they kind of, either wander into a bush near the trail, and they just happen upon the snake that's sitting there waiting for their next meal, and they get spooked by, a child. Sometimes you'll have an older child who sees the snake and is curious about it and will go and pick it up. That occasionally happens. Most of the kids kind of get bit on the ankle, leg, because they're climbing around rocks where the snakes are present.
Sure. How dangerous is that bite, especially for kids, and then maybe related to adults?
Well, kids are definitely more vulnerable. The snake usually is going to deposit pretty much the same amount of venom in a child as it would in an adult. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule, but they're going to have more venom per body weight, so they can have a harder time of it. If you're a kid, particularly if you're a toddler, you can get really sick. So
What about death?
Very rare, particularly if you get to the hospital. I think nationwide it's estimated maybe 5 deaths per year out of 6,000 bites. Maybe 5 people will die, and usually those are people who don't get to the hospital.
Wow. Yeah.
But if you get bit by a snake and you get to the hospital in a timely manner, you're going to do well.
Well, we see, Doctor, those old heroic things in the John Wayne movie, where you get out the pocket knife and you make the little slice and you suck the venom out. And what should you really do if you or someone in your family, someone that you are with, is bitten by a snake?
Well, let's start by, if you see a snake, and there are a lot up in the foothills here. I've had people say they've seen them while walking, is just leave the snake alone. Don't poke at it with a stick. Don't pick it up.
Yeah.
That's about 80% of our bites are people who are picking up the snake. Even if you don't think it's a poisonous snake, I wouldn't pick it up, because sometimes it's hard to tell unless you really know how to identify snakes. If you do get bitten, there's really no first aid that you can do. We don't that will change anything. I always say the best first aid kit is a cell phone and car keys.
Yeah.
You just need to get to the hospital. Just calmly walk out of wherever you are, if you're up on a trail or in your backyard, and get in the car and go to the nearest hospital so that they can assess your bite and whether you've been envenomated, because not all bites end up depositing venom, and whether you're going to need the antivenom administered to you. Mm-hmm. No cutting, no sucking, no tourniquets. Those things actually tend to do more harm than good. And most people can get to a hospital within an hour or so of being bitten in Utah. And
if you do get to a hospital within an hour, you're pretty much okay in that window?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be okay. You're going to get antivenom. You might be in the hospital for a day or two, depending on how much venom got injected into you.
Right.
It's always very unpredictable. But the 3 or 4 cases we've had so far this year have been discharged within 24 to 48 hours of being admitted to the hospital.
Doctor, I certainly appreciate your time and letting us tap into your expertise. Medical toxicologist at the University of Utah, Dr. Martin Caravati, with us. When we come back, we're going to be talking with the owner, operator of Wasatch Snake Removal. Dave Jensen will be our guest. Stay with us.